All right, so here's the deal. Americans are cutting back on some spending, but according to the data that we're looking at now, they are not cutting back on food or fun. So I was just looking at some new data from Yelp this morning, and they're still showing significant consumer interest and actually increases in interest in three categories: restaurants, entertainment, and nightlife. And here's the thing: there's also a growing number of concepts and operators out there that are rising to meet that demand. And our research team actually counted them all up. We found over 9.1 million square feet of new entertainment space slated to open in the US and Canada by 2025. So that's a lot, but that's also big picture. So I thought today what we would do is zoom in on the details. So today we're going to talk with three different entertainment operators. We're going to find out what the opportunities are right now, what the challenges are right now, and what their growth plans are, because we're always want to find out what the future is. So all of that is right now on Everything We Know About Retail. This is the show where we tell you everything we know about retail and real estate. So we broadcast live on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're going about once a month these days, but you can watch us whenever you want. All of the replays, all of the historical videos are on the web. Head on over to everythingweknow.show. So my name is James Cook. I'm coming to you live from Indiana. I research retail and real estate for JLL. And my guests today, this is one of the best lineups I think we've ever had, because I love entertainment. And these are three very interesting entertainment folks. So we've got Philip Kaplan with Velocity Esports. We've got Brian Schultz with Look Cinemas. And we've got Josh Rossmeisl with Amp Up One Hospitality. So the way this works is I'm going to do an interview with each one of those in turn, and then we're going to get to a group discussion. And that's your opportunity to give comments, ask questions. Hey, and as long as they're appropriate, I'll give them to our guests. So type them in now as we go. Type in all of your questions. Iberi Anakute is in the chat room today. So he'll probably, I don't know, maybe he'll mix it up in the chat room too. Anyway, Iberi loves a good chat. So let's get into it. We're going to bring on our first guest. Our first guest today is Brian Schultz, CEO with Look Cinemas. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Coming to you from Hollywood, California.
I love it. You're so on brand right now. Live from Hollywood, Brian Schultz. I feel, I'm in Indiana, so, not nearly as exciting as Hollywood. Is that where Look Cinemas is based out of?
We're based out of Dallas, Texas, but we have 4 locations, soon to be a few more in Southern California. And I'm just back from a couple of the premieres. I don't get a lot of sympathy when I have to watch a lot of movies before they come out. So no sympathy for that.
So just so I understand it, Brian, you're in Hollywood for movie premieres?
Yeah, we're doing movie premieres. We talk to a lot of the creative community and make sure that we're programming for our local communities the right content.
I'm so jealous. Can you talk about something that you've seen recently that got you excited?
There's absolutely a lot. The new Barbie movie is absolutely awesome. It's going to be a barn burner, kind of unexpected. Oppenheimer's an excellent movie coming up. But most importantly, the movies are back. And there's a lot of just great movies, and really excited that all the different segments are coming together. And, as a retailer, we want to make sure that we can hit all the quadrants.
I love it. I'm super excited about that Oppenheimer movie. That's Christopher Nolan, right?
Yeah, he always does a great job, and he layers it so much. And I actually learned a couple things that I didn't know historically too. So I won't do any spoilers though.
I'm so jealous. You've already seen it. Okay, well, let's get into the meat of the discussion here. Look Cinemas. So tell me, what makes the Look experience different? Is there something unique about the look and feel of a Look Cinema?
Yeah, there's a lot different. So 31 years ago, I really created, with my previous company, Studio Movie Grill, the dine-in experience for movie theaters. So I love going to the movies, but I didn't like the core experience. And at every angle, we've kind of evolved. So COVID was an opportunity to kind of create a 2.0 for dine-in theaters. And what do you end up doing with all these movie theaters that have kind of just ridden that wave of Hollywood and haven't, really evolved too much? So that's what Look Cinemas is. It's a white piece of paper where we just started in 2021, restarted. And how could we put together the best film selection, the best laser projection, the best immersive experience with a ninja type service with dine in without any distractions whatsoever? And then add in a little bit community gathering place in the lobbies, what we really ended up focusing on, which is our purpose, which is bringing communities together.
I love it. I love it. So an ideal location for you is sort of a neighborhood, like a city neighborhood.
Yeah, an area that needs a spark. So a lot of the centers that we're going into are more in the lifestyle type locations, but communities that really value entertainment and don't have a great theater. So that's really where it's worked. And oddly enough, Look is really evolved out of helping landlords deal with problems. So over the 31 years, I have a lot of landlord relationships, and we've just helped them out. What do you have when you have a theater that's not being operated properly, maybe a dark theater? How can you revive that or even repurpose it?
Interesting. So am I right? The latest location is in Manhattan. It's at the Via 57 project, right?
It is. West 57th is absolutely awesome. And it's a little bit of a different flavor. That community is very sophisticated, loves indie film. And in that location, on any given day, you have stars sitting right next to the general public, watching all different kinds of movies within walking distance. So it's just got a little bit of a different vibe. The amount of film festivals and private events that we do there is absolutely unbelievable.
That is really cool. So tell me a little bit about the food and beverage program, how you've kind of tailored that to this specific audience.
So when I first started, I looked for the best mentor, and it was a gentleman named Norman Brinker, because we're based out of Dallas. So I reached out to him. We used to get together weekly, and he really taught me a lot about how do you build a great culture? How do you build from the ground up? And then he also had some kind of regrets over time as that kind of Brinkerized corporate structure got into play, where we talked about kind of death by 1,000 pinpricks. As you start to pull out quality or make your supply chain a little bit more efficient. So all fresh made to order food, 80% is our standard menu that we just absolutely perfected and all the fan favorites. And then 20% of it's local with our local chefs. So we actually reach out to the community. We figure out what they want, the taste profiles, whether it's from craft beers to particular liquors to even a little bit of a different flavoring when it comes to different sauces. So we specialize per community.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So we talked about the location in Manhattan. What other locations do you currently have open?
Yeah, we have 4 in the Los Angeles market. We're in Dallas. We have 3 locations there. We're in Atlanta. We're in Florida. We're in Arizona, and soon to be in DC. So we're just very particular about where we want to be, and it's opportunistic. Ideally, for my travel plans, I'd rather have it be a little bit more centralized, but we have to go where the communities really want a great theater, and we can really make a difference. So,
do you have a site identified for DC?
We do. We're in the Reston Town Center.
Oh, sure. I've been there many times.
So that should be opening at the end of the year. But, what I'm really enjoying is working with landlords that have theaters that have underperformed or in some form of a transition, and we can bring them to the latest and greatest and create footfall. So the difference that you have with Look Cinemas is that we have kind of a lobby lounge where we want communities to get together, where we do a lot of minor events. And then we have our movie offering, which is set to the community. And then we also have our corporate training. So anything a hotel could do, we do during the day, including esports. So I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about that section as well. But the video conferencing, high-speed internet is a big part of it, so that we can help be a good partner with landlords and help them have footfall in all segments of the day.
Hey, I'm going to throw in a question here from Zach. Are you looking for only second generation space that maybe has been a former AMC?
Second generation is preferable. I don't think that there's a lot of need for a lot of new movie theaters at this moment based on the current, economic environment. But in the right project, there are some that are being built.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let's talk about economics. There's probably some developers watching or listening, or that are wondering, how does that work? Like, what, speak a little bit to that.
Every landlord's a little bit different. Generally, in a traditional theater concept, you can pay about 20% of your total revenue base towards occupancy costs, so fully loaded occupancy costs. In a dine-in, because you have a lot more labor and you have a different economic model, you can pay about 10%. Restaurants traditionally can pay about 6% of revenue. So dine-in movie theaters, because we have the ticket component, can pay about 10% of revenue, and then a traditional theater can go up about 20 because it's a labor light type model.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. So you're paying lower rents, but economically, you're probably more viable than a traditional movie theater.
Well, unfortunately for us, or maybe fortunately, we're actually paying usually higher rents, but the percentages are lower because in a dine-in concept done right, 70% of the revenue comes from food and beverage. So when you compare the theater attendance, you can go ahead and multiply whatever the box office is times 3. So if you have theaters in your portfolio, in a traditional theater, it's 1/3 concessions, 2/3 box office. In a dine-in, that's inverted.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, this is good news then. Not for you, but for the landlords.
Well, it's a partnership, right? So at the right occupancy, everyone thrives, and then the location can be reinvested in and obviously create more footfall. So that's really the goal with the landlords. And I've been helping a lot of landlords, whether look goes there or not, just understand the landscape of entertainment. And just in case anyone's wondering, movie theaters are not dead. And we're thriving, and there's a lot of content. And the slate for the end of 23 and 24 looks absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I imagine that the proliferation of streamers, Netflix, Hulu, and all the others, it's probably changed how people view you. I mean, it forces you to be more experiential, right?
Definitely on that point. I'm a little bit contrarian when it comes to streamers because I look at it as a synergistic ecosystem. So when more money comes into the creative community, we can make more content and we can create content lovers. So movie theaters' best customers are also avid streamers and vice versa. So it's synergistic, although I know the media has turned it out to be kind of a war, and there's been some warring pieces of it or some battles, let's say, for sure. But it's really synergistic. But I think you're right. To really survive in the movie theater business, we have to raise the bar because the quality of home theater, the quality of home experience, and the just diversity of selection has gone up. So you have to have a different comfort level. You have to have a different quality on the screen, and you have to have some sort of incentive. And every movie theater that's been built over the last 2.5 years has some sort of extra feature, even if it's just a small bar with alcohol or whatever. So I think the theater has been resistant to change, but I think that message is loud and clear post-COVID.
I love it. Well, I love that message that it's not a zero-sum game, that kind of it's all this big entertainment industry and you're all kind of feeding off of each other. Okay, so Brian, we're going to bring you back in for our group discussion at the end, but it's time for us to move on. So our next guest today is Phil Kaplan with Velocity Esports. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, James. Great to be here.
Yeah, and so Phil, we've had you on the podcast before, so I am already a fan and feel like I know a lot about Velocity. But let's introduce it to the audience here. So, how do you describe what Velocity Esports is?
Velocity Esports is a next generation video game focused company. And we are all about driving social experiences in venue across a variety of games, with esports being the center, but we also offer arcade and other social bar type games, and create an environment that's welcoming on a weekend night out, and also great for corporate or other personal type events.
So you could go to a Velocity and not be a gamer at all, right? There's enough food, drink, but you have bowling sometimes, right? Like there's a lot to do.
Yes, that's right. So we have bowling in a couple of our sites, and I'll say, while the center is also really around video games, we drive. You don't have to be an expert gamer. The reality is that can be intimidating for some consumers. So we try to be very welcoming. Video gaming is a giant category with so many different titles, and it's similar to movies that we just heard from Brian. It's very hits driven as well. So, at any given time, you'll have titles coming in, titles going out, and we're very open to giving a wide range of options for folks to play. And then, on the weekends, it tends to be a night out kind of place. And then during the week, we do a lot of programming. So we drive audience in around, competitions, and because, again, the nature, same thing with streamers following, especially for those of us who have teenagers and or even 20 somethings that are into video games, it's pretty much an even ratio of who plays versus who watches. And so if you can create a compelling social experience where, on a Tuesday night, there's 100 people in our venue competing or watching fighting games, it becomes a recurring weekly audience that comes to, similar to what Brian was saying. You have a very good young demographic coming into a center and bringing life on nights that may otherwise not be busy.
So you have arcade games too, right? So there's sort of console and PC, and I almost we call it in our research like an esports lounge. So where you pay by the half an hour to play on a console or a PC.
That's right. So someone could come into our venue, during any operating hour and set up to play on either console or PC games, and we'll literally have hundreds of titles they can play with. In some cases, we will have literally a couch with a TV set up, but there's somebody serving drinks and milkshakes and food at that console, and you could have an audience. You could bring in friends, or you could have whatever people are in the venue watching you play. We have more intense PC setups with the latest software and the latest, fastest chips and machines. And then we have a video game arcade, and the arcade business it's fun and very self-service and very social. The arcade floor gets busy and people play there. We also have more low-tech games like pool tables and that also go well with social games in a venue.
Gotcha. So let's talk. We talked a little bit about drinks, but we haven't really talked about food. Tell me about the food menu and that you've kind of created to sort of tailor to this audience.
So our target market would be younger millennials and call it older Gen Z. So teens, later teens into early 20s kind of thing. And so when we started, we really just by statistic looked at what feeds that audience, and so our offering is modern American and kind of upscale Mexican favorites. So from tacos to pizza to burgers, but well done, better than you'd expect in a lot of entertainment venues, and you can sit down and eat, or we'll serve food right into the esports lounge. Somebody could be at a table and playing in game and eating French fries.
That sounds great. So it's approachable, but it's a little bit more elevated than just pizza or something like that.
That's right. And then we also offer a full menu of craft beverages and alcohol for sale too, that can be taken anywhere in the venue.
What do you have a sense of, like, what percentage is families versus the over 21 crowd hanging out with their friends?
I think like a lot of in-person entertainment concept, it's going to sort of vary by operating hour, generally speaking. So, you'll tend to get the families more during day parts, and then you go into the evenings. The median age will rise. Weekends will be very heavily family during the day. If it's a sports uh, Sunday or something, you're going to have a sports viewing audience in venue, and the demographic that attracts. So we're very focused on marketing and programming it to our target demo, but we pull in it's a wide range that will come in.
I don't know a lot about video gaming. I know classic arcade games from my youth, but like the modern games, like what's a title that brings in the crowds? Is it Fortnite? Is that the one that everybody comes to see?
Fortnite's still popular amongst sort of your call it 10 to 14 type of crowd. But it's new titles all the time. So we had done some work with an EA title called Knockout City for a while, and we're doing a cluster of different fighting games, which can be classic games like Tekken, more modern fighting games. We do the racing genre sometimes. So we'll program to different genres on different nights, but because each game, and this is one of the things that may be less understood about esports, you have different game genres, and so you have to get together the people that are in the same community. They want to trade well earned. The Grand Theft Auto crowd wants to meet the Grand Theft Auto other players and learn tips and tricks from each other. So we create programming around a specific either genre or specific title on a given night, and then drive that audience, sort of to repeat on that night. And then, they want to come back, they meet like-minded folks and compete against them.
I love it. You're creating community, giving people a reason to get out, which is, I love it, because gamers, they have this idea that they're just at home in their basements, and these are the people who are getting out and connecting at Velocity. It's very cool.
We're all humans are social beings, and even those of us that are home a lot playing games, it's great to get out and meet like-minded folks, and especially in a safe, fun environment.
Phil, so you've got, off the top of my head, your first location was in Metro Cincy in Northern Kentucky. Second was in Vegas. But you've got more on the way, right?
We do. So we had actually expanded the Cincinnati venue by adding a bowling alley onto it that we acquired. Where the landlord had looked to us as a solution to create a superior combined offering. And we're now under construction in a mall in the western Chicago suburbs, which is a Simon property. And we just actually announced last week a lease signing in Orlando for a downtown location. So we are looking to grow at a prudent pace, and similar. We're interested in second generation space, as long as there's enough adjacent space to make it become a Velocity. We don't need bowling, but we definitely need space for arcade games and esports games. We do need but if there's a kitchen already built, as long as it's not too out purpose for what we're doing, it does make sense to reutilize existing asset bases. And we try to be smart and put the capital where it's going to drive the best return.
Makes sense. All right, Phil. We're gonna say goodbye to you for a minute and then bring you back in for our group discussion. Right now, we've got Josh Rossmeisl with Amp Up One Hospitality. Josh, you're joining us live from the venue, from your third spot, the first location there in Atlanta, in Midtown, right?
That's right. Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me, James. Yeah, no, I'm here in beautiful Atlanta in the spot, and spending time with the team here, and things are awesome. It's a little warm here today.
Yeah, I've noticed. Now, have you guys gotten that are you getting that Canadian smoke that we have here in the Midwest?
Not quite yet, but we're definitely getting some heat this weekend. So, but
Yeah.
it's to be expected.
Okay, so for folks that aren't familiar, because you're new, your third spot just opened up the end of last year, right?
That's correct. November.
Yeah. So describe what a visit to your third spot is like.
Yeah, so it's hard to describe it in just a couple of minutes, but essentially what it is it's a giant adult playground, really kind of an upscale place that focuses on a better food and beverage offering. We come from a strong hospitality background, and it's really just we're born of the pandemic, and many of us have worked together for many years in the entertainment world. So much like Brian, we kind of sort of took that 2.0 approach, had a blank canvas, and really thought about, what do we want to do to kind of really up the ante and really improve the overall experience for experiential dining. And we spent quite a bit of time when we had that time, thankfully, to really conceptualize the experiential dining brand of the future, really leaning into technology and really studying trends of kind of what the consumer was looking for, as we have quite a bit of experience with that. So it's a beautiful space. We have 30,000 square feet. In this Atlanta location, we have a big mezzanine. We have a giant outdoor patio. We have a outdoor tree house with a 2-level slide, and we have over 85 different experiences, including quite a few retro kind of arcade games. We have indoor curling. We have these amazing darts, really unique dart program that we have. We have an indoor cornhole arena. We have a lot of analog experiences in third spot, and what makes it really unique is everybody kind of comes in and has access to every experience, so everybody gets their experience pass, or soon to be the app, and is able to utilize any and all of the experiences inside the building. So it's not really kind of a one size fits all experience. It's what kind of mood are you in today? A lot of people want to focus on just an analog experience. Some people want to play more games or more head to head or table games. Some people want to bowl. And then many people are spending hours just kind of doing it all. What makes it really unique and takes it over the top is the food and beverage program that we offer. We have an amazing small plates program curated by one of the best chefs in the country, in my humble opinion, where the food is not necessarily an afterthought. It's really an incredible complement to the overall experience, where it's not really a knife and fork entree, comes with side dishes, everybody gets their own meal type of thing. It's more of this amazing small plates, tapas style, shareable experience that allows groups to kind of experiment with very talented chefs, kind of foodie selections, as well as some of the kind of standards that have been elevated when it comes to food. A lot of craft cocktails, a lot of craft beers, and definitely a lot of consuming of alcoholic beverages. And the venue's 21 and older after 5 o'clock every day. So it's just a really cool playground.
I love it. So it's kind of like an experience buffet, because with this experience pass, you just pay a flat fee. You just do whatever you want. What is, mind if I ask you, what's the pricing on that?
So the experience pass is between $25 to $30 per guest. And again, gives you unlimited access for up to 3 hours from the time that you tap your card. So it's a really good value. They're able to play a lot of games, and they're able to really play a lot of games that they probably wouldn't have played under the traditional kind of point system that's out there. So,
Josh, one of the things that I think you've done a really good job with your thoughts, third spot, is social media marketing. I know you've got your hashtag on Twitter has like when I last looked, it was approaching 2 million views, which, I got 3 views on did I say Twitter? I meant TikTok. On TikTok is where you guys are dominating. So tell me how that works. Is that organic, or do you have to really work to make that happen?
No, it's if you when you come into the building and you see it, it's really designed for Instagram and TikTok. I mean, the whole place is when you walk from the experience room into the facility, it's kind of a breathtaking view, and we have these little Easter eggs throughout the place. I think we have probably the most Instagram bathrooms in the country, and which, believe it or not, people absolutely love. But no, it's every bit of it's been organic. We have been so lucky with that. I mean, we're approaching almost 70,000 followers on Instagram, and we've had millions and millions of views on TikTok. I mean, it's almost, I'd say conservatively, between 60 to 70% of the people that are coming in through our doors, because we do ask every guest, how did you hear about us, are coming from either Instagram or TikTok. So we really do encourage that when they're in the building, and I think the building kind of lends itself to the photographer, whether it's amateur or a lot of the pros that are coming in to kind of capture some content and have a good time.
Well, I have to ask you now, what is it about your bathrooms that makes people want to photograph you?
I'll leave the big surprises. You kind of have to see it to believe it, but we wanted to really invest in having the bathroom be its own experience. There are no bathrooms like these anywhere that I've ever seen. So I will promise anybody that they come in, if they hit the button on the wall in the bathroom, it'll be a fun experience for everybody that's in the bathroom area. So
okay, now I got to check this out. So you're in the project called The Works in Atlanta. Talk a little bit more about that. Like, what's how do you fit in with that project?
Oh, it's an incredible project. Truly a wonderfully curated mixed-use lifestyle center of the next generation. I mean, they've done such a remarkable job of really putting together such a great lineup of really great tenants, between the residential and the office tenants, to the restaurants, the food hall, the other experiences, great craft cocktail bars and brewery, and I mean, you name it, The Works has it. It's probably, I mean, I'm incredibly biased, but it's a very, very unique spot that has a wonderful outdoor kind of green center that is really kind of this amazing community hub that's directly in front of us. So that's sort of our front yard with tons of trees and just places to kind of lounge and walk around and just hang out. I think The Works has it all, and it's really still obviously being built. There's another whole 40 acres that are being developed starting next year as they finish up the first phase of it. But we feel very, very lucky to be in this amazing project with really great developers in an amazing neighborhood in one of the best cities in the country.
I love it. Josh, do us a quick favor. Turn the camera around if you can, so we can see, because you're sitting there, if you can, because you're sitting there kind of overlooking the
Am I able to, if I could present on here, I have some images that are
let's see.
readily available.
I'm not sure if I can do that. Do you see, do you have the present button? Oh, you do. Here we go.
Yes.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, so this is can you see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is the outside of the third spot here in West Midtown. This is the experience room that everybody kind of walks in. They get their orientation and activate the app, or they get their experience card as we kind of do what we call Eliminate Anonymous as people are coming in, and tell them a little bit more about what's going on the other side of those doors. We bought these beautiful ornate antique doors that everybody walks through. Pictures don't do this place justice, but we'll try. and everybody kind of walks through the doors, and you have your cornhole arena. We have a 50-foot bar, 4,000 square foot mezzanine. We have some massive projection screens. We have indoor cabanas. This is the bar that we have a couple of TVs and an amazing craft cocktail program. We do these amazing craft batch cocktails. We have an incredible system that really maintains the integrity of a craft cocktail that's batched out to our indoor cabanas that oftentimes groups are renting out for whether it's just birthday parties or just date night or for big corporate groups. We have the library, which is a quieter area that has these amazing darts and some of our table games, and of course our full-size bowling lanes that we have to the kind of I guess modern retro arcade as we call it. There's a little sneak peek of the one area in the restroom, very unique spot. Our Grove area, this is up on the mezzanine, actually where I'm sitting right now, and that's kind of a view down from the mezzanine, kind of looking at the entire spot. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's awesome. So we're going to transition right into the group chat portion of our show. I'm going to add in Phil and Brian to the conversation. Apologies to Brian and Phil. We should have set this up so you could have shared photos of yours, because I know both of yours are just as beautiful. I don't want anyone to think that Velocity and Look Cinemas isn't worth a peek either. It definitely is. So let's get right into the Q&A here. For folks that are viewing at home, type in your questions. We'll get to as many as we can. I'm going to kick it off with a question of my own. Operational hurdles right now. What's the biggest challenge for you? Is it labor? Brian, you can start it off. What's the biggest operational challenge for you right now?
In the last 2 months, there's been an incredible change in the availability of hourly labor and the quality. So we don't necessarily have a lot of turnover. People that like to work with Look are definitely movie lovers and are foodies and are into that delivery of high service and bringing communities together. So that's not maybe the largest operational challenge. Some of the challenges we're dealing with is really city governments getting in the way of basic operations. Even things like in Atlanta, just being able to provide just consistent power. So basic random things that have been coming recently that we're not used to.
Wow. Josh, have you run into any power issues in Atlanta?
My first time was on Sunday. We actually lost power at about 6:45 and ended up having to close for the night. But it's been few and far between. We're lucky. I know that it's been a challenge for many others, though.
Wow, that's so interesting. I didn't know about that. So Phil, what's the biggest operational challenge for you right now? Oh, Phil, you're on mute. There you go.
I hear that a lot. So yes, I mean, very similarly, labor issues are always a concern, right? So, try hiring cooks and dishwashers these days, right? But as Brian also indicated, we're seeing improvement. Things are stabilizing, and we've been very fortunate that we handpicked our professional team, and we have zero turnover at that level.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fantastic, and that's what you need. Okay, here's a question from David Young. I think all of you are expanding. What markets are you focused on? Maybe Josh, I'll go to you first because we didn't really talk about expansion plans at all.
Sure. So we're focused primarily in the Southeast and then up to the Midwest. Some markets that we're pretty familiar with. And we're working on several locations right now. There's definitely no shortage of opportunities. It's just finding the right, lining up the right box that's going to kind of fit and check all of our boxes. So
makes sense. Brian, any thoughts on focused markets for future expansion?
Yeah, I thought I'd be real specific. We're trying to work with great landlords, and literally, we want landlords that have a conscious mindset, that really care about the concepts that are coming in, that aren't trying to just knock out the same old flavor. And I really think that there's a fork in the road coming for especially landlords that have kind of that same old repeatable box. They're going to need to bring in unique operators that really care about their teams, care about what they're delivering, and care about their communities. So I see this gap getting wider and wider in the future.
Interesting. Phil, where are you focused on? I know you mentioned Chicago. What's next after that?
So I get to bat cleanup here. I think you've got a common thread of three operators that are really on a next gen 2.0 post-COVID world concept that's a little more thoughtful and imaginative in terms of how we take a space and breathe life into it. And so yes, we are Chicago headquartered, and so definitely looking to expand in the Midwest. But we are also, as I had mentioned, Orlando. So we're looking elsewhere in Florida, and then up into, we would be looking in Carolinas and Georgia as well for, sort of next phase, next couple of years type of expansion.
Gotcha. All right. So here's a question from Helly. For Look Cinemas, how do you stay ahead of emerging trends? This is a question for all of you, but Brian, we'll start with you. How do you stay on top of it? I guess you go to Hollywood and watch movies, right?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of other trends, including the gaming and value add, but that's where my energy is. I just really love almost creating the trends in our industry, and I feel like I've been doing that for 30 years, whether it's dine-in, reserved seating, recliners, laser projection, corporate training, events, having lobby lounges. So that's what I love to do. And I do that with a lot of research and focus. And if you don't love it, I don't think you want to be in the hospitality business. And unfortunately, there's just so many corporate operators and so many banks that are really operating entertainment concepts. And it might look good on the P&L or the balance sheet, but it's not a long-term formula for success.
Yeah, makes sense. So Phil, how do you stay on top of everything new?
Well, look, it's a hits business. I'm sure very similar with the movies, right? There's now this ecosystem where sometimes the game title comes out first and then they make the movie, and sometimes the movie comes out first and they make the game. But content is definitely king. We program the titles. We get rid of the duds and do more with the hits. We're constantly updating to bring in the latest titles. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You have to be very objective and very measured and know your demo, and be focused on that. And if you execute well in your target demo, you tend to pull in other people too.
Makes sense. So Josh, how do you stay on top of it? I feel like, aren't you often adding in new games, new experiences?
Yeah, it's actually built into our model. When we conceptualized the brand, the goal was not to kind of typecast ourselves into one sort of bucket or another. So, for us, R&D is really part of our DNA. So we're always kind of staying on the cutting edge when it comes to kind of what is that next indoor curling experience, or the next new game that everybody's sort of gravitating towards, similar to kind of what we did with the cornhole arenas and with the scoring system that we have with those as well. So,
all right, so we're officially out of time, but I see a good question that Colin just sent in, so I'm going to ask it. My apologies for going over. I think this is great. What's the biggest challenge in selling your concept to landlords? And Brian, I'll start with you.
I would say generally, there's not a real problem selling the Look dine-in cinemas concept. There's a lot of talk about movie theaters are dead and that the industry's future is dead. Entertainment's too, spotty, doesn't have the longevity. So you really need to look towards the operator. So the biggest challenge is for them to get to know the concept. And I'm always surprised with landlords. I said, well, have you ever visited a location? And they're like, no. And I said, okay, well, I think that might solve a lot of this problem. So we invite all our landlords to come down. We give them a full tour and get into the experience. And I bet that would be the same for our other guests is, we can show pictures. We can tell our little story But at the end of the day, it's the experience and the feeling that you leave with. You might not be able to identify one thing, but it's the overall experience that we give to our guests that drive the longevity and the risk mitigation.
Phil, what's the biggest challenge in selling your concept to landlords?
I'm going to actually take exception to the word selling, because at the end of the day, you are in an agreement with the landlord for an extended period of time. So it's really about finding the right fit. And, so it's mutually just objectively discussing your concept. Of course, we're all, this is an excited bunch that loves what we do here, right? But at the end of the day, you have to have a landlord that has the like mind, that you're bringing something of value, where you fit in their ecosystem. It's got to, of course, the deal side has to work and make sense, for the stage of business that we're at, as well as the landlord's sort of long-term plans making sense. So it's a partnership conversation, not a sale in either direction.
So the better metaphor is almost like a marriage. Like, you've got to attract them, but then you're getting married for a long time. So,
well, James, you have to be careful about that metaphor, because it's a 15-year deal a lot of times, and it doesn't go over well. So,
right. So, Josh, any thoughts on wooing the landlord? What's the challenge in selling your concept to them?
I have to echo Brian in saying that any landlord that's been in our space, it kind of sells itself, but it's really just finding the boxes that are, not kind of really settling for anything that's going to not make your brand pop the way that you want it to, just to kind of get your brand into a project. So we've walked away from quite a few deals that just, they're in amazing locations that have really great landlords, where the building itself wasn't the right building for us, or it wasn't positioned the right way. So I guess that's more discipline on our end. But I think that's usually the biggest challenge for us, or is the biggest challenge right now that we're finding.
Makes perfect sense. Well, folks, we're out of time. Josh, Rossmeisl, Amp Up 1, and your third spot, I want to thank you so much. Phil Kaplan, Velocity Esports, and Brian Schultz with Look Cinemas. Thank you to all three of you for joining us today. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Great. Thank you.
All right. And just want to let everybody know that there is much more where this came from. We do a weekly podcast. And we also do reports. You can download our latest entertainment report over at jll.com. And let me just, okay, I lost track of my clicker. Here we go. Oh, it's that. Check that out. Entertainment Concepts Report, download for free over at jll.com. Check it out. There's a lot more on the latest entertainment trends. And then we also have a podcast. It's called Where We Buy. We do in-depth weekly interviews. We're available on whatever your favorite podcast app is. You can search for Where We Buy. I use Spotify myself. That's my favorite. Or you can find us on the web at wherewebuy.show. Some of you are watching us live on YouTube right now. If you are, hit subscribe on YouTube, and then make sure you click on the bell icon so that you're notified when the next show comes out. But a lot of you, probably most of you actually, are watching us on LinkedIn. So the way to make sure you know about future episodes on LinkedIn is to follow JLL Retail on LinkedIn, and that'll give you notifications when we do our next episode. I've got 2 more scheduled for the next 2 months in this summer, and the plan is to be doing more every month, every month from here on out, with awesome guests like you saw here today. So we will be back next month. So what did we learn about retail today? Well, I think that I learned that we're now post-pandemic. And the things that we're offering our entertainment consumers, they're different. They're different than they were before. The movie theaters of before are not the movie theaters of today. that are going to be successful. Same with, the arcade, same with the esports. All of it's got to be different to cater to that new, whatever, 2.0 customer. So if you want to know more about everything we know about retail, you can join us here again next month.